All right, everybody. Again, I would just like to say welcome to the class and thank you for joining me for the Hex Yeah class. So in your kits that came, I believe, and when I posted it online and in the emails, I sent you Kevin's tips for no line coloring. So hopefully you've kind of reviewed it. I'm going to go over it super quick here, which is just use a light ink for stamping. And I also wanted to show you something else. If you didn't have desert sand, you could use something like just a very light gray ink as well. So if you didn't have desert sand, or if you wanted to try something different, you could always use just a very light ink. If you wanted, you could use a very light yellow ink. It all depends on what you prefer. The desert sand is kind of the standard in no line coloring. However, you can be your own person and change it up if you want to. Use yellow or, for instance, like with the Stitch release that came out, I actually stamped him out in blue because the lines I thought would be better in blue than in black. So don't always think that you've got to stamp it in either like black for normal or desert sand for when you're doing no line coloring. Stamp light but clearly, so obviously we know we want that image to be there, but again, you don't have to have the image perfect. Like some of the ones, I think everything I've stamped kind of has like a pretty close to perfect image outline, but if there was a line missing, you don't need to worry about it too much. Define eye edges with contrast, so we're going to be going over that in the class. So that's just going to be where we're placing dark colors. Use a sharp tip or fine point. So sketch style strokes and flicks help the coloring be neat. So we are going to have a practice. So I'm going to say have a little sheet of paper off to the side for your coloring, because some of what we're going to do is going to now require you to use the lightest hand you ever use and the very tip of your Copic marker, the brush nib, in some of the lightest ways you've ever used it while coloring. One, because some of the details are small, and two, we need to be soft with just some of those coloring. Don't be afraid to add details back. So that's where we're going to use our fine liner, our micro pen, or our colored pencil. So we're going to add detail back where we need it, because sometimes in no line coloring, you can blur things out. So that's why we always have our image to refer back to, which is our next point. 7, refer to the line art, because that's going to help you remember where some of the lines and shapes are. Blend gently. So you're going to use layers, which we normally do when we're Copic coloring anyway, but this is just going to help us. And no line images can get muddy if you overblend too quickly. That is very true. So sometimes we're going to have a little bit of drying time when we do our coloring, where a lot of times when we're just doing our normal coloring, we like to get in there and we like to blend right away. We have to be a little bit more careful that we don't muddy the image or overblend in some cases, just so that we end up with a nice clear image. And again, it's all about we don't have the lines, or the lines aren't there. And it is what gives you that very different look to your images when you have finished them. I'm going to go ahead and grab you these just so you can see. But again, like you can just see how different it looks when there are no lines, as opposed to when you're working something with that has the lines and you've got that defined black everywhere. And again, obviously, we don't have that. And then add finishing touches. So that's when you use your white gel pen, add highlights. And that's about it. And we're obviously going to be using our colored pencil. Our colored pencil part is going to come in once everything is done. So we're going to do our full Copic application first, color it all up, and then we're going to be adding the details in with our colored pencil. So then you should have gotten your master list to have everything ready. And then the one that you'll need now is this one right here, which is our Project 1 dual-sided bookmark. So we are going to be starting with the Garden Witch. So I'm going to go ahead and grab her, and this is who I have labeled as the Garden Witch. And again, you're going to want to make sure you have your outline here somewhere beside you just for some reference. And you can see here that I did stamp her eyes out with that Memento ink black, just so I didn't have to go in and try and do that after. So I do have all my images pre-ready, pre-stamped beside me. So I'm just going to move them out of the way quickly here. And I have all my Copic markers organized. And we're going to start with our skin tones. So our skin tones that will be using right now are going to be the E04, E11, E21, E00, E000, E quad 0. We're also going to be using E93. And this replaces what we normally use our R20 with. Yeah, so that is just what I need you to have there. So does everybody have their markers ready? Yep, all right. So we are going to begin with our E04. Make sure you grab the right nib. So our E04. Now what I am going to do is I'm going to set her aside just for a moment. And this is where we're going to start a tiny bit of practice. So we're going to take just a little sheet of paper, and we're going to try and just a few strokes here of the lightest touch you've ever managed to do in your entire life with a Copic. So I am going to just kiss the page with the very tip of my brush nib. So you can see that line is quite small, because normally when we go in, we kind of go in like this. And we're like, oh, look, there we go. Here, we need to try and go in with a very steady hand, which works well if you place your palm right down on your paper so you have an anchor point. And then you just kind of go across. Now, we don't have a guideline here because when we're just practicing, there's nothing to go against. But we just want to try practicing a few of those just to make sure that we've kind of got that light touch in there for these lines. Now, what you also want to make sure you do, if you think you have a blobby or possibly blobby Copic, you would take that end off, because another thing that happens in no line coloring, it's harder to correct a leak mistake in a low line coloring only because the black lines aren't there. And sometimes those help define spaces better. And when you don't have those lines there, sometimes in no line, it's harder to get back. So you want to make sure that you kind of test your marker off to the side, make sure we're not getting any blobbies. If you do need to release some of that pressure by taking the cap off. Now, usually your markers probably should be good unless you just recently filled them. So once we have those a few times, we can go ahead and grab our image. And where do I have her? Oh, here we go. All right. So what we're going to do is, okay, here's where I'm going to get you to look. See where your stamp line is? Your goal is to not go over the stamped line. So we're going to here just very fine. We're going to try and stay inside that line the best we can. It may look a little shaky. You don't have to worry so much about that because we are going to still blend it out. In the skin tone, we do kind of still work at a normal pace. So you can see that I just started above her left eyebrow, and I'm going to come down just to above here. And again, if it looks shaky, that's okay. We're going to be blending it. It's going to soften. You don't need to worry about it. Now, as well, when you're holding your Copic markers, it is better if you hold it more on a 90-degree angle. You get a little bit more control. However, when coloring like this, and I'm one of the only people that do it, I make sure that for video purposes, I color off on an angle. So my projects usually tend to look better when I'm not videoing them and I'm coloring, I'm going to say the more correct way. When I'm coloring off like this, it's so you can see where I'm putting my lines in. Because if I did her ear like this, you can't see where I'm coloring. But when I do it like this on an angle, you can see where I'm placing that color. So when I do her ear here, again, I'm trying to stay inside that line right now. And then just coming and I'm curving it around. And we're coming up and we're kind of outlining that inner part of the ear. As we move forward in the coloring, it'll make more sense of why we're doing this. And I can kind of tell you now too, it's because sometimes when you go right on the line, you actually start to lose definition where you might need it later. So sometimes we can go back and add it in where we need it. But if we go too far, too fast, you can get a image that just doesn't look as crisp as it could, even though it's no line. So now we're going to go in and we're going to do her nose. Now her nose is one thing where we can go right on the line. So we're just going to follow that. And you can see that that is probably the finest I've ever probably used a Copic marker in my life. And we're not going to do her mouth because we're going to leave that out. Now I am going to do right under her cheek. So this color is going under her, on her neck, under her chin. And we're going to make a corner right in here. Is everyone doing okay so far? Thumbs up, thumbs up. All right. So hand detail, super, super, super important. That again, we're using the lightest hand and the tiniest tip of that marker we've ever used. So we're going to go ahead and outline the hand, and on her hand, you can go ahead and use the line. But we're going to stop at her robe line. So we're just doing her, basically just doing her fingers. And again, you're kind of trying to be the most delicate you can. If you don't hit it right on the first time in this first image, you don't need to worry about it because this is a class and I've done this more than probably most of you, I'm guessing. So if you're like, oh no, it went too big or you got a thicker line, it's okay. Well, it's still going to look good. So now we're going to move over to her left cheek. And again, we're going to go on the inside. And we're going to just slightly come up with that line. And I've just kind of just kissed it in there. I'm going to do the same thing here on the bottom of her right cheek. And I don't go, sort of started right above her shoulder where her neck meets, and I've ended before her ear here. So we can go ahead and we can cap our E04. And we're going to go to our E11. So if you've colored with us before, you know this is our standard skin tone. I can tell you with this witch here, she does have a completely different blend, but that's all explained. Just so you know how to do some other things as well. So again, we're going to use super fine stroke. I'm decapping both of my marker lids just because I'm paranoid because it's happened too many times now. So now we can go over and we're going to run over exactly what we colored. Still kind of fine, but we will, it's just going to barely extend out past where we colored with that E04. So you want to go directly over the E04. And now you're going to follow those outlines down. And just gonna throw something in there. I kind of forgot her inner ear fold there. So this one actually just needs a little EO4 right in there. So whenever you have a chance to pop that in, go ahead. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to start on her cheek here. And you can see I went even like a tiny bit wide there. I'm gonna bring it right up behind her eyelashes on that side. And I'm sure you all know this already, but make sure that when you're coloring, you move your image to be most comfortable for when you color. So you can see now she kind of has that basic outline around her, but I've tried to stay inside the line and not go over it. So now on her neck here, so this is where you're going to be really careful. And I'm going to try and show you the best I can because I know with the Google Meet, I can't see them very well or at all. So under her neck here, where you put that EO4, do not go up to the same line you just colored on. Make sure that when you put this E11 in, you're just putting it at the bottom of the neckline and right inside there underneath that E04. Leave that space, and we kind of want to leave that there because we need to make sure that we see definition later on between face and neck, and that's going to be achieved through color. And again, not so much with heavy dark black lines like we're used to. Then with her hand, now you can kind of go ahead and outline. Now this part too, I want you to keep as fine a detail as you possibly can. You are going to go up to the robe now, that sleeve. But again, we're going to go very sparingly in there with that E11. And with that E11, we can go right over her nose. And you're going to go on the inside of it a bit now. Just so she's got definition in there. Then with her mouth, now with our E11, I'm just going to add it right into the left-hand corner. Just a little bit, not too much. Line kind of looks a little weird right now. That's okay. Now here's where we're gonna jump. So we're gonna grab our E93, so that T rose color. So that's what you're gonna want next. And this is where you don't have to use your marker too lightly at the moment. So here, I call it the whale, which everybody thinks is weird, but I'm gonna show you. So I'm gonna just grab a Sharpie here real quick. So if this is the line of our cheek right here, this is why I call it the whale. So if that's our cheek line, let's say her neck's over here. I call it the whale because I like to come up, sweep it over, and then kind of have a tail out. So it kind of comes up out because this would be like where it shoots its water from, and that's its tail, and that's like say its eye. So that's what I call it, the whale. So here is where I kind of come up, and then I just kind of flick it out a bit. Now on this side, she doesn't have enough room to do a whale because her face is turned to the side. So I'm just going to make that little rounded bit there. And I'm putting this in first because I want it to be blended out with our other colors after. But does that make sense why I call it the whale? Because Steven seems to be confused by it, and so does Annie. They're like, it doesn't make sense. And I'm like, it's like a whale shape that's like on top of the water. It's like how a kid would draw a whale. I don't know. All right, so next up after that, you're going to grab your E21, your soft sun color. So now I'm going to call it, now we're starting to return to our regular programming where you don't need to go as light now that we're starting to move away from those lines. So our E21, that soft sun. Now we still don't want to go over our originally colored line, but we are going to kind of go over that E04 and the E21, or E11, sorry. And we are going to start to bring it down now. Now, this is going to be very important around the eyes. Be very, very careful. So I'm going to say once you kind of put that color in her forehead here and you've kind of done that V shape, I'm going to bring it down just a little bit from this middle part and around her eyebrow. I'm going to bring it down here and a little bit into her ear. So this is where I'm going to say you're going to go in with your E21 to go around the eye. And again, super, super careful. So I'm going to say, if you're not paying attention, this is where you're going to need to. So I'm going to start on the outside of her eye, right where this lash line is. And I'm just going to kind of go around it. And I am turning my image as I go. And I'm going to try and go a little bit more exaggerated outside of her eye than I normally would, just to make sure I do end up with that space to fill it in, because with these eyes, we are going to be adding some color. And then we're just keeping on turning around. And then we come back up. So it's a little bit, so basically it's not a round eye, it's a little bit more oval shaped, or yeah, I'm going to say oval shaped, because normal eye, we normally think of them as like round, and with our other chibi design that we've typically worked with, those eyes are round. These ones have a more oval shape, so we need to pay attention to that, and we need to make sure we're leaving some space for color inside, for white and for color. So on this side, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start above her eyelash line. We're going to come around. I'm going to try and stay well outside where I want to be, because even when I'm trying to say well outside, I end up being exactly where I need to be for the most part. And if you're not, you can always add it in a little bit after. So right now, your image should look very strange like this. So if it looks strange and not right, you're doing perfect. So now with our E21, we can go around her chin, and we're starting to work over where her cheeks are, and go a little bit into that nose. Now with the E21, we're going to go over to this side of the mouth. We're going to add in a little bit on that line. There's nothing in the middle yet. Come around the ear a little bit. And I'm going to work that E21 just a little bit more to that right-hand side of her face and through her eyebrow. And a little bit more over her cheek. So you almost have kind of a crescent moon sitting on this side now. We're going to add a little bit of this E21 in at the bottom of her neck. But again, if you can see that, I'm going to try and lift it up for you guys. Where's my little bit? Here we are. So right in here, there is still a little bit of white space right in there that you can just kind of make out. Then with our E21, we're going to go in on this sleeve side in the bottom, and we're just adding a little bit of color in there. So basically what we're doing is we're creating more shadow to the right-hand side of her face. That was our E21. Now I'm going to get you to go to your E00. So that is our skin white. And I'm going to start at her forehead again. And now I'm going to start kind of under that E04 line. And I'm just going to start to bring that color down. And I'm kind of using the side of my marker right now to blend that color down. And I'm going to go over the E04 just a little bit towards the end. I'm going to slide this around her cheek on that side into her ear a little bit, because now I'm starting to use this as a little bit more of a blend across the bottom of her chin, up into that other cheek, and then I'm going to slide it across under her mouth a bit. And then I'm going to kind of go around that eye line on both sides. and into her nose. So now you should have something that looks like that. Then in her hand, we're just going to put a little tiny dot of this color in, just right in here into the corner, and just kind of blend it out that way. So we still have a little bit of a white section in there. And hopefully yours looks a little bit more blended. When it is on camera, it does tend to look kind of a little bit blotchy and everything's a little bit more defined. Don't know why that is, but it seems to happen. So next we're going to go in with our 000. So that is our pale fruit pink. We're going to use the right nib. So with our pale fruit pink, we're going to, instead of coming down, we're going to go out. So we're going to start above the nose and I'm just going to kind of push out a little bit. And the same, I'm going to bring it down into my image. And then I'm going to slide around the eye a bit, over that cheek side, this side. Now I'm going to go right under her neck here. Now I'm going to blend that in. So you can see I'm just kind of going back and forth here. And just kind of blending that in now under her neck. And then in her hand as well. Now those last little fingers, and I'm bringing from the tips of her fingers into her hand. Just like that. And we're bringing some light in. So you can start to see now that some of that definition is starting to kind of come into place right now. Now we're going to grab our E quad 0. So our E quad 0, we're going to just start right in the middle. And you can kind of do a little circle motion right around her nose and above her mouth. And then we're going to push out real quick. So these are faster strokes here. And we're going to go around that eye a little bit, soften that line up. Go a little under her neck, a little under her fingers again. And I'm going to kind of go over her left eyebrow, just underneath it a bit. I'm going to kind of rock this back and forth over here and into the left-hand side of her cheek. Just so this side kind of stays that light side. Now we're going to go in with our R22, that light prawn. So this is where you're just going to put her mouth in now. So her mouth, you're just going to go over the line that you did. Just very lightly. And I like to kind of give her a little corner. So the line's not there, so we just put it. So I just kind of bring her mouth down just a little tiny bit in the corner. And there we have our skin tone. So I'll let everybody kind of catch up at this point. See where you are. Raise your hand if you have any questions, or you can unmute yourself as well if you have a question. Is everybody okay to move forward? Can I get a verbal yes? So unmute yourself.
Yes, sir. Right away, sir.
All right.
I couldn't find the mute button. I'm a tartar.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm good.
And Liza and Becky, are you good?
I'm all right. You were going a little too fast.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay. Do you have any questions about anything so far?
Well, my only problem is that I'm not using Copics. I'm using the Olos plus my Ohuhus.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to match,
Match the color.
Yeah, but I'll be fine.
Okay. And while we kind of catch up, I am going to just do a little bit more softening work here. I'm using my quad 0. I'm just going to go back in and I'm going to slide it over her hairline a little bit. Over that EO4, I'm just going to slide it over. So if there's anything that you feel needs a little bit more blending or softening at this point, that's where you can go in with that quad 0. And you can just be like, okay, I think that needs to be just touched up a little bit. And that's what you can do. Now again, the images start to come to life and they always go together and come together better once you actually have the eyes done and the highlights. I always find it looks a little weird until the end. So now I'm going to go ahead and move forward. So we're going to move on to the eyes. So her eye color is going to be B17, B15, and B112. And we are going to start with our darkest color first, which is that B12, then our 15, and then our 17, our 15, and then our 2, or 17, 15, 12. But we know technically we're supposed to be calling them 17 and not 17. So our
Kevin,
sorry,
did you say B17?
sorry, V like Victor.
V.
So our violet 17, violet 15, and violet 12.
Okay, because I couldn't find a B one.
No, sorry.
Kevin, can you put the cap on the screen so I
Okay.
could see? Thank you.
No problem. Sorry, I'll keep them over here from now on. All right. So with our V17, again, I'm kind of going with where did I say the shadow was? I said she's a little bit darker on her right-hand side. So again, then her V17, the darkest part of the colored part of her eye, is going to be on that right-hand side. Now, here's the thing. We want to keep white. So again, you're going to be going very, very, very gently with your V17. And I'm almost going to start like inside the pupil so that I'm adding that V17 just barely outside of it, just so I'm leaving white behind. And I'm going to do the same on this side. I'm going to start just beyond that pupil. I'm just really, just a tiny bit outside that pupil with the V17. It is a very, very small amount of color that we're putting into this space. So if you're not hitting it right away, that's okay. So our V15, sorry, this one is Chow. Couldn't find my sketch. So we're going to come with the V15 under her eye. And again, just kind of going over that pupil and extending it out a bit. And turn the image to make it easier for you to color. And then I think it's kind of harder to see on the screen right now. I'm not sure. But yeah, you should just be getting like that very small amount of color in there. So basically our V17 was kind of on the right hand side and the upper kind of part, middle of our eye around. Then it was the V15 kind of underneath, and then our V12 V12 or V12, that pale lilac. This is going to come up from that and just go on that outside and come up to that right hand side of her eye up here. And then here, you're going to kind of want to spin it all the way around now, just to kind of make sure you do have a blend. I'm going to take that pale lilac and just go right around her pupil now. And this is a part two where you can try and get a little bit more perfect. And I just realized I've been coloring without my glasses, the reading glasses, this entire time. So hats off to me for not going totally AWOL and coloring things I shouldn't. Uh-oh. I think a screw just popped out of my glasses, so hopefully we'll be okay. All right. So here again, I'm just going to kind of smooth out, round this out. And just to make sure I kind of have things kind of looking consistent, I'm going to color right over that pupil. And here, I'm trying to not go off screen. So here you can see I'm just gently trying to push that color beyond.
So Kevin, this should look like a purple raccoon when we get done.
Yep.
Okay.
And again, like I always say, like they look so weird without the eye highlights, but you can see in the new stamp images where our traditional chibis had the little highlights put in. I asked Annie to not for this set that I helped design, because we always put them in where we want them anyway, and I'm doing them a little bit differently. So instead of saying like the light is coming from here or we want that highlight here, you have a little bit more freedom of expression. Where you put that highlight can also convey like a different mood as well. So we're not going to put our gel pen or Posca pen in now just because we're working in a space and I don't want it to smudge. But does everybody have her eyes done? Jana, actually, yeah, if you do a thumbs up, that would work with the little emojis. So Jana, thumbs up, Becky, thumbs up, big thumbs up, ooh, splash thumbs up, Eliza, thumbs up.
I don't see a thumb up. Sorry.
I can hear you, so that's good. I can
Oh.
see you going there. Judy, how are you doing? Good. All right. And Karen? Oh,
I'm good.
okay. All right. So we're going to go in with our dress next. So that is going to be our YG99, our YG97, our Ouija, our YG95, our YG93, and our YG91. So, and I always like to have my markers all laid out in the order I'm going to use them. So I know I'm going to go darker to lighter. So I am going to place them from my YG99 to my YG97, my YG95, my YG93, and ending with my YG91. I always like to kind of map everything out when I color. Now, too, with the whites around the eyes, if you want, you can, if you have a colorless blender, if you found that you have kind of, once you put your color in, you're not quite in the right space, you could take your colorless blender and just run over that inside of the white part and kind of push out a little bit just to make sure that space is a little bit more defined. So right here around her eye, I'll do it a little bit. Just an option that's there if you want it. Okay, so our YG99, again, we're working against these lines. We're going to start with our very, 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 very fine line. And because it's a darker marker, here it is, YG99, our marine green. We're going to be trying to do those super, super gentle lines again. And we're starting in, I'm going to call it like the darkest part. The darkest part is going to be right down here. So I'm going to start on the bottom right-hand corner of her, sorry, I'm trying to get in the middle of the screen here, of her dress. And at this point, I am not going over that line. So I have a backwards L right here. Now right here is her sleeve. So can you see that's the little part of the sleeve here that hangs under? Right here, you're going to follow the line, but at the same time, you're going to very delicately fill in that space. When I say delicately, I mean because if you just go in and color it right away, it's going to end up too big. So you try to want to stay in between those lines and keep it in that tight little space. Otherwise, it's going to kind of just look awkward, or you might lose it all together. Then I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to start on this part of the sleeve here and go up just a little bit on that folded part of the sleeve. Then inside her elbow here. I'm also going to go in on the definition lines. And these ones we can go right over. So where you see these definition lines on her clothes, now this is going to help us know where things land. And so we don't accidentally lose where her arms are. Because if we don't put the dark lines in here and we start to color and color, we could very easily, lose those lines. And then all of a sudden she's got no arms because we've colored over it. And that can happen. So that's why we also kind of refer back to our picture, because if we were coloring and we didn't put those lines in, all of a sudden we'd be like, why does it look like her body's a blob? It's because she has no arms and they just kind of melded together. So here too, there's like a little line under her necklace. You can come under that just with a very fine little stroke. And what we're going to do to here is, again, you're going to want to be very, very careful here. We're going to go on the outside of this plant, these leaves. But you can see I've kind of changed the shape a little bit. I've decided they're going to have pointy leaves. Just because. Slide up a little bit. I'm going to put a little bit of that line right into here, a little bit here, and I'm going to put it up into her shoulder a bit, and I'm trying to stay again underneath that line. Then we can cap that marker. So our next marker is going to be our YG97, which is our Spanish olive. Our Spanish olive is going to go right over top of our YG99 and then start to slide around. It's going to kind of fill in some of those spaces now. And now any of the lines that we had kind of left previously, now here. So see where her hand attaches or is in her sleeve. So again, you want to make sure that you kind of curve around it. And obviously you're not coming over her hand. But you do want to make sure that you are actually just really, really trying to follow that line again, so we end up with some kind of definition thereafter. Here, make sure you know that her sleeve ends at that L shape and that we don't go color into her hair that's behind it. Again, I'm going to come up this line and it goes slightly down on the necklace a little bit. And I'm going to come in here on the inside of her collar, just like that. I'm going to come up her dress just a little bit. And on this side into that elbow and a little bit into her shoulder here. And I'm going to leave those alone. So we should still have space here on the dress where she's kind of got her arm tucked behind her dress and a little bit here and here in her sleeve and nothing around her necklace there and nothing right under her neck here. Give me 1 second. And I will let you catch up for a moment. Oops. Oh, and I'm just gonna make sure that my speakers are up. Okay, Google, turn volume to 10%. Oh yeah. Okay, so next we're going to be going in with our YG95. I don't know if you guys can hear my dog barking. I hope not. Not getting that on camera. So our YG95, our pale olive. So just so we don't forget where we are and where we need to go, we're going to use that pale olive and we're going to fill in the gaps. So we're going to go right in between here now. And we can go follow that around a little bit. And I'm going to going over these lines now. So here I'm going to follow it around. And I'm going to kind of go right over it. Now this is the part here where now I'm going to, so I kind of stayed inside that line, but now you can cover that line and you're just going to smoothly fill it in. So this outline is now going to be in our Y95, which is that slightly lighter color. Well, obviously it is lighter. 95 and not the 97 and not the 99. So here I am going over everything with this color. And I'm adding it in and covering those lines up now. And then here, I'm going to just work on the inside. This line, again, here, very gently inside the sleeve a bit. And I'm going to come in on the elbow here. Start to come up on this side of the dress a bit, and I'm going to fill it in here. And then I'm going to go trace it around her hand, up that side. And across her necklace. And then now here, I want you to be very careful because you're going to go around the necklace, but inside and outside of that necklace line, which I know is a little bit crazy. But your image should look something like this right now. So once you have that, we're going to use this YG95 and we're going to come across and just go up right here in her dress. Then we're going to follow around and then come up here just so she's got some folds and movement in there. And that is our YG95 right now. So to make life easier on all of us, at least that's what I'm going to say. If you have your fine liner right now, go ahead and grab it. I have mine in the micron. It's the 01 size. So this I'm going to use to put in her necklace line in between that color. I'm just going to go ahead, and it's a super fine line, and it is black. Crazy, I know. But that's just going to make sure that we don't lose it later, and that we can color over it, because we know that black is going to stay right where it is. Making those marks for me to better see where the center of my screen is. So now we're going in with our YG93. So this is our grayish yellow, but green. So this one, we're going to start to go over the color we did and stretch it out and in. Here we're going to come around the arm a bit, up on the sleeve, or the inside of this top part here. We're still leaving this inside part right here in the sleeve. I'm going to come in on the right hand side over here a bit, around the necklace up here. And down here and above the necklace over here, so above that black line where we put in, you still want some white left over here and all over on this side. So I'm just going to stop right now, just so you can catch up. See, I'm going to repoint out where these are. So we should have a tiny bit of white in here, white into her left, I'm calling it her left side sleeve. Over here, a little bit here, here, and this whole side right here, and the sleeve is still empty. Finally, we're going to grab our YG91, which is our putty. So now we are starting to definitely get off the green a little bit. It's less green. So our YG91, now we're going to put over this sleeve and we're going to blend into this side and blend into the white and blend. Work it around and blend. You're staying off the skin. We're going to come up, blend, and we're also going to start to bring this back to the right where the shadow is. Bring it across. We want all the colors to meld together. That's what we want to do. Again, here, we're going to go in on the white, in on the white, and blend. And I do want to just remind you of one thing right now. While we're coloring this, we are adding only our Copic detail right now. So this will start to take on a different look once we add our polychromo, our colored pencil into these images, because that also helps transform them quite a bit. And it's kind of what I like about the no line coloring, is getting to add another medium to it, just adding a little bit of extra detail. So now we're going to do her necklace. And her necklace is the same color of her eyes, so that B17, B15, B12. If you can't fit them all in, that's okay. But if you have the dexterity and the right reading glasses, we're going to go ahead and we're going to make that circular space, and I'm going to come around with my B17. And I'm doing kind of a backwards crescent moon shape here, just with my B17. Then I'll move on to my B15. Just gonna rock it in there. Then I'm gonna finish off the circle with the B12 on that left-hand side, and just kind of do this, and now I'm just spinning it around to give her a cute little violet pendant that matches her. Nice. Give me a thumbs up or some kind of fun emoji if you are all good so far. And I'm throwing a bunch of hearts and everything up there too. All right, perfect. So after her necklace, now we're going to her hair. So her hair is going to be the T's, the toner grays. So this is your T9, T7, T5, T3, T1, and T0. Because I wanted to make her an older, more mature garden witch. And I'm just going to lay out my markers in the order that I'm going to use them, which again is darkest to lightest. Now I'm using a lot of colors in here, but I am going to be using them sparingly. All right. T9, our toner gray, is our first color. Pardon me. Our toner gray. So again, we want to start on the outside line here. So whatever makes it easier for you, I'm going to start here. Now, right in between her cheek and her robe is going to go a tiny little line. So you want to be very careful. And then you can guide that down. And you want to keep this one fairly thin. And I'm trying to make sure you can see where I'm putting it as I'm putting it. And we're turning it around. I like to get the scary parts out of the way first. So that was the first scary part. And the next scary part is on the other side. So we're going around. All right, next scary part is around her face. So we're not doing that scary part this time though. Not yet. So now we're gonna bring this color up. And we're gonna follow her lines up a little bit. Just partially. So we should just have it right in here right now. And if you want to kind of measure across, or that your dark is kind of ending at the same point here, except for this outside line here, I want that one to extend up a little bit more and come right off the tip of her ear. We're going to add it a little bit right into this spot here, not all the way, and nothing on the other side or anywhere else with the T9. And again, this is because we're going to try and make the right hand side of her hair slightly darker than the left. Same with the face and the dress and everything else we've been trying to do. Light this time is on her left hand side. Typically, I find a lot of people that are right-handed end up doing the light coming from the right or the top. So we're just doing it a little differently, just to throw something extra in there for you. So after our T9, we're going to be using our T7. Now, if you don't have as many of these colors as well, just use the ones you do have in the order that is basically darkest to lightest. So now with our T7, we're going to now go under the line of her skin. So again, you're going to be very, very gently putting this line in. You're going outside the line, not on the line. You're going to go up her ear. Start to come around where you hit that line and stop. So this T7, that's the only place it's going in around her skin here. So we are going to add just a little bit right here above her eyebrow. And again, try and color above that line right now. We're going to extend it up above our T7 line just a little bit. We don't want to go too high yet. On the outside. And in here. We can add a little bit right here on this first line. But then we're going to stop. The difference is almost imperceptible, but it honestly makes a difference to your final product. So after that, we're going to go in with our T5, so our toner gray number 5. So our toner gray number 5 is going to finish framing her face. So right now we can kind of go over the line we did just a little bit, try and keep it close. And try and keep it fine if you can. We're going to turn it around. Up. Slide across. Now we're going to go in onto the other side of her face again. We're going to be very, very careful as we come around her cheek. I'm starting kind of up by this lash line. And I'm going to be very, very careful if I can. Sliding that line around. And staying outside of her in tone line right now. So you should have that kind of outlined right now. It looks a little strange. Don't worry, it'll get better. Our T5 can come up here and connect now. We're going to connect with our T5. Our T5 is going to finish off these lines. Make it a little deeper if you want. And on this line, you're allowed to color on this line, on this hairline. I'm going to say a little tip here, a general rule of thumb is when you're doing no line coloring, outside lines that don't connect or touch to anything else, you can always pretty much go over those lines. It's the lines inside your image that you have to worry about a little bit more, that you're not accidentally coloring over. Does that make sense to everybody? I'm gonna hope that was a yes.
Yes, Kevin, for everyone.
All right. So now once we have that T5 in there, we're going to cap that up. And we're going to move on to our T3. And then I'm going to show you, this is like a little bit different as well, because usually we kind of are putting in that detail for our hair color with our darkest markers. And right now we did 3 dark to kind of outline everything. And then we're using our 3 lightest to kind of fill in. But again, we have to remember that we'll also be using colored pencil in the end to add in some detail. So our T3, we're going to go in with. And now we can kind of add those flicks that we normally do for our hair. If you haven't done our hair before, we usually start by making a flick, which kind of extends out and away from you, because you tend to end up with a pointier tip and a thicker base. Sorry, trying to get back on the screen for everybody. And as much as you can, you want to kind of keep to the direction of that the hair is going. And I like to start from the bottom, and then we're leaving space. Now here, I'm going to kind of give her a little bit of I'm going to call it her hairline or her part. And I'm just going to kind of wiggle that across. And then I'm going to add in a few strokes away from it for her part. And then here, I'm going to follow the shape of her hair. So this kind of is starting to give you the idea of where the highlights are going to be in her hair, where the darker part is, and how we're going to have that in the middle. And again, like I said, that she's a little bit more shadowed on this side. So you just add in a few extra lines here. And what you're going to do underneath is you're going to come down from her ear a bit. in her cheek, and you're going to bring it down into those sections and kind of off from her cheek here. So you can see more and more, slowly, she starts to take a little bit more shape and becomes easier to identify as a truer image as we go along. There's no line coloring. Just the name of the game is kind of looks a little wonky until you start to add in those finishing details and those final colors, and you start to get more and more color on there, just because those thick, dark lines that indicate where everything is aren't there. So now our T1, our toner gray, we're going to go ahead and we're going to just flick out a little bit past what we did already. Now this toner gray, this T1, I'm just kind of keeping it to the bottom here, and I'm just kind of filling in a bit. And then on this right-hand side, and I'm just kind of coming off this point here a little bit. And I'm going to come out from her part here. And nothing with the T1 on her left-hand side. That's her bright side. So now we're going with our T0, which is our lightest of our toner gray that we're going to be using today. And here I can go ahead and I'm just going to fill that in right on this side and blend a little bit, but not over blend, because I kind of want to see where those marker brush strokes are still, so that we still have texture left over. And I'm just kind of filling it in just into the middle. And then with our T3, now we're going to kind of touch up that hairline a little bit where we see that we're a little too far away from that EO4 line. We're going to just kind of bring it up there. Just to make sure we know where everything is supposed to be. And this is where our image should be at this point. Still looking maybe a wee bit wonky, but not too bad. Not too bad. Now we're going to be going to our leaves.
I'm not quite there yet, Kevin.
Okay. Yeah, we'll take a little pause break. I'll just let you know that our markers are the G28, G24, and G21, but I will let you guys kind of catch up a little bit. I'm just going in with my fine liner just to touch up a little bit around her eye, just for the moment. Was everybody getting all their emails and notifications about the class okay?
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure that everything was very clear, very set up, nothing was missing. Everybody knew what they were supposed to have done and be doing. Are we okay to move on to the leaves? Judith, I think I see you is frozen.
I
maybe.
say yes.
Okay. Oh, wait, I'm missing some. Oh, I think Melissa just gave me a thumbs up. Jana, Karen, Becky, you're all good? Salmon is, oh, Becky, yep. Judith, yep. Oh, Judith, do you have a question?
I do have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
G24, what is that called?
Willow.
It's called what?
Willow. So it looks like
Willow.
this one.
It's like that. Okay. Okay.
Kind of a mid yellowy green, sort of, without being a YG.
Thank you.
No problem. All right, so we're G28 is where we're gonna start. And this is pretty simple, so you don't have to feel like I'm like rushing ahead here too much. But we're going to just start with this central stem line of our plant. I'm going to bring it right up to the tip, and I've decided to change the shape of the leaves here. Which you don't have to do, but that's the kind of one thing with no line coloring is you have options. You change things up a little bit if you want to. And I'm the one who helped design them, but I was like, do you know what? I've decided I want pointy leaves. So you can leave them rounded, or you can do what I'm doing and decide to give them a point. So I'm only putting that color of the G28 on that right-hand side. And then I'm doing a little bit right here, just where it comes off on both sides of the left-hand side leaf. So on the left-hand side of her, like our left one looking at her, I'm going to go up that stem. And then keep that to the right-hand side as well, so that these leaves also have that darkness there. And again, oops, sorry, I went a little bit big there. See, I kind of blotched. And just up the sides a little bit with that G28. Annie was just checking in on the class. If you heard that little beep, just like, I hope your class went well. I'm like, we're still on the first image. I don't know if she knew what time it started. So from there, we're going to go in with our G24, which is that willow color. That right there for you. And I'm going to create that outside line now and connect the point. And I'm going to add it just a little bit heavier on this side. Now, here's one thing too when you're coloring. Like again, I'm kind of just teaching, so trying to go at a decent pace without rushing you. But the one thing that you need to know when you're doing, I think I find anyway, any coloring that you do with Copics, really difficult to try and rush through it. It is best to kind of take your time as you color. And now, especially when you're going in with a no line coloring, because you need to really, really pay attention to the placement of your color and the details to make sure everything ends up sitting right where it should be. So now we're going in with our G21, which is called lime green. Is it lime green? Well, that's up to you to decide. And I'm going to just kind of fill in that leaf now. And then the other side. And I'm going to take this lime green color, and then I'm going to fill in that leaf shape that we have down at her dress. And that's going to kind of get filled in with the colored pencil. So technically, she's all colored now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my Posca pens to put in her eye highlights so she starts to look a little bit more normal, and she's going to gain a whole lot of cute instantly when she doesn't have a dead look to her eyes. Right now, she has a smile, but she looks a little dead in the eye.
Kevin, what
So-
color what color did you use for the leaf on her dress?
The leaf on her dress was just the G21 by itself.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. So I'm giving her her white highlights right in kind of the bottom middle. I'm going to put a little dot up above that off to the right of white. And I have an even finer Posca pen. And I'm going to add a third highlight above that. Then I'm just going to set her aside for a moment. And I'm going to grab our little kitty cat. Wherever I put it. Yep, there it is. So our little cat is just done with those same T's. So you can just grab those back. So you're grabbing your T9, T7, T5, T3, T1, T0, and then you're also grabbing E93 and R22. Is everybody okay if I go ahead with the kitty? Becky says yes. Judith says yes.
Yes.
Eliza, yes. A yes. Cool. And Sammy, I think it was a yes. And Karen, are you okay?
Yes, I'm good.
Perfect. So, little kitty, we're going to start with our T9. The kitty is not going to take too long at all. It is a very small image. So, the T9, we're just going to start gently on his paw. Kind of go around his little toes above that tail line. Outside line, we can kind of go right on the tail here. Outside line, we're going to come right around. And I'm kind of making him a little bit more textured, so my lines aren't going to be perfect. I'm not looking for like perfection in these lines right now. Around the toes, yes, but on the outside, you don't need to. I'm going to go around his face a little bit. And again, I'm considering these kind of like an outside line. And up, and a little bit on his ear there. And that's it with the T9. So, super quickly. Our T7 is going to just slightly extend past what we did. Just bringing it around a little bit. Not too much. And again, just on that side. Then our T5, I'm going to use to outline the rest of the kitty. So this part happens pretty fast. He's a smaller image. And we want his outline edge to be a little, like, I'm going to call it slightly imperfect because he has fur. So from your T5, you're going to go to your T3. So your T3, we're just going to put kind of into those bottom right-hand corner sides and around his tail, make it kind of thicker into here and around this side. And I'm trying to make it a little bit more textured with my placement here, and I'm just kind of dotting it in a little bit. Now, don't hit his mouth. It's one thing that we don't want to do. So on his little kitty mouth and nose, we're going to go in with that R22 now, that light prawn. And I'm going to give him a little bit of a nose. Come down in his mouth. And you can go in with that E93 real quick. I'm just going to fill in that inner part of his ear. Keep your E93 close because you're going to add a little bit of R22 into the bottom of the ear, just a little bit, and up that right-hand side. And then you're going to blend it out with your E93. Then I'm going to go in with my T1. So my T1, I'm going to start on kind of that left-hand side. I'm going to kind of smoosh it in this way around his face. I'm going to kind of keep it under his mouth and go in and over. And then we're going to rock it back and forth in here a little bit and in here. And this is where we're going to kind of do a little bit of that blendy. And when I say blendy, I mean you're really working those colors together. Like you're really going to try and work between the two so that they create that really nice blend. And where they start to lose those lines where they look like a separate color. You really want them to look like a unified tone. So that was the T1. And then we'll go in with our T0, and that's where I'm going to kind of go around the nose and around closer to the mouth area here. I'm going to bring that out onto this left-hand side to make it nice and bright. And I go over everything, just make sure I got all my colors blended the way I want to. And there we have our little kitty who now has the same kind of highlight as our bitch. So I'll kind of let you catch up, and then we're going to move on to our polychromos or colored pencil details, which are pretty fast to do. So I made sure I had all my polychromos sharpened. So these are the ones I'm using. If you're using something else, that's okay too. But these are the ones that I use, the Faber-Castell polychromos, and I just use the 24. And once we finish this part, I'm going to stop the recording so that this video can be broken up and be watched in sections by everybody. Are we ready to move on to the polychromo section? And this I want a nice verbal yes from everybody that's on.
Yes.
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 Perfect. All right. So if you have your guide with you, you'll see that Polychromos is listed, and we're looking for 190, which is our Venetian red. And if you're not using Polychromos, you want something that looks an approximation to this color. So with this, we're going to just very gently add in a little bit of color, just gently around her ear and her cheek a bit. We can use it to define her chin and her neck. We can go in and define her nose a little bit more. If you decided you wanted a freckled witch, you could add a few little freckle spots. And just going to kind of shade it just a little bit under here. It's very, very gently that we're doing with this polychromo, not too much. And that's it. Just a slight touch, not overdoing anything. The only thing, if you want to, if you think you need to define your fingers or your hands a little bit more, you can do that.
Kevin, so you don't use Camsol with the colored pencils?
Not when I'm using it over Chrome Copics,
Okay.
and not typically on the hammer mill paper.
Okay.
So you can't, but so this is what I do for blending. I do just use my finger. So if I want, like right after I put it down, I just kind of use my finger a little bit to get a little bit of a softening or a blend if I want them on there. So next we're going to do her dress. So her dress is going to be 264 and 198. They're the colors that we're looking for. So 264 is our dark phthalo green. I don't think I'm pronouncing that correctly, but I'm hoping you'll forgive me. And our 168, which is our earth green. So these are the two colors you're looking for. So with our 268, or sorry, 264, that darker of our greens, we're going to come in and we're just going to add in a little bit more depth around the bottom. And if you can see, and just kind of, it's just very lightly going in here and just adding in just a touch more depth. It's not a lot. And if I just want to sharpen some things up a bit, they can hear around her sleeve, or add in a little bit more definition where I think it needs to be. And around her collar a bit more. And you can extend some of your lines a bit more if you want. You can see very little touches, light touches with that 268. Then you'll go in with your earth green yellowish, 168. That one, this is going to be kind of that highlighty color, but it's still a little bit darker. So you want to go off the left side of where you kind of colored. And I'm going to kind of go around this leaf a bit, kind of sharpen that out, which is going to get its own color. And you can see I'm kind of sharpening some of the lines here as well. And around her shoulder a bit. On both sides. So really, the polychromos were here just trying to use them to accentuate, not recolor everything we just did. We're just adding slight touches of just a little boost, a little something extra. And if you want to, you can just kind of rub your finger over if you want to like smooth out. It will affect what you laid down, the polychromos anyway. So her necklace, we're going to be using 133. So that 133 is magenta. So it's like your deep purple color here. And here, I'm just going to be using it on that left-hand side. Just a little bit where that light was. I'm not going to go over the dark where we did that V17. I just want it slightly over on that light-hand side. Again, it's just a tiny accentuation, but sometimes the tiniest little things makes the difference. And that's what I'm going to say about these images too. Like, you could quick color these images with just a couple colors. But what we're trying to do is really enhance and really give them a lot of detail. And basically, we're putting in a lot of love and a lot of time into these. So again, you're not probably going to give this to just anybody. You want to give this to someone who you know is going to appreciate it if you give it away at all. And I think we all have those kind of people or moments where we're like, how much effort, what am I going to put into this card? And for who is it for? So after we do the necklace, her hair, so we're going to grab our 199, which is very easy. It is our black. Our Schwartz black. We're going to be grabbing our 274, which is our warm gray. And we're going to be grabbing our 271, which is our warm gray 2. So actually warm gray 1 is our 274, and warm gray number 2 is our 271. So you need these three right here. And again, it's all about where's the light hitting, where do we want this? Again, the underside of her hair is going to be a little bit darker and off to the right. So here, I'm just adding in just a little bit of fine lines in here. And again, I'm not trying to go overboard with it. And I am going to add a little bit more out from her part here. So remember when I did a little squiggle on her part? So I'm going to do a little squiggle on her part here again, slightly. And then I'm just going to come out from a little bit. And same on this side. So you can see her hair is beginning to get more of that detail. Then we'll go in with that warm gray number 1. Actually, it's not warm gray number 1. It's warm gray 5. If you're going by Roman numerals, that's a V, so that's a 5. So I apologize for calling it 1. I just assumed I've done that. Because this warm gray is II, which is 2. So anyway. So now I'm going to spin her around, and with this warm gray 5, this darker one, we're going to come down a little bit from under her skin, her cheek, her ear, and we're bringing this down, and we're trying to make it as fine lined as we can. And we'll bring it up from the bottom just a little bit as well. Not too much because we already have that black in there. And here I'm going to come in from that little bang section out from her part a little bit. I'm going to bring it across here. Over here. And just a tiny bit on this side, not too much. So you can kind of see we're starting to get this really, really pretty gray color with definition and some strands in there. Then we'll end up with our lightest gray, which is that warm gray number 2 or 271. In here, we're just going to add it in. And we're going to kind of color over that outside line, because it's going to soften it on that side and lighten it. And it's going to act like a little bit like a highlight. Just throw in a little bit on this side, but not a lot. And you can see now that she is kind of a little bit more highlighted as well off to that left hand side. And I think she looks pretty cute. So now we're going to, sorry, go ahead. Do you have a question? So her leaves, we're going to do 163. So we're using our other greens. So we're using our 163. Well, I can find it. Where's 163? Oh, there it is. We used it. So our 163 again is our, is our emerald green. We didn't use that one yet. Our emerald green, and our 171, which is our light green. So these are for our leaves. So our leaves, I'm going to start with the one in her dress. And I'm just going to kind of find that one a little bit. I'm just adding a little bit of a vein line right into the leaf. Just kind of, again, just to accentuate and make sure that that like little tip is on there. And just add that hint more of definition. And then with our light one, I'm just going to go in just a little bit in some places here, just on those outside of the leaves where I want it to be a little bit brighter. And just adding it, and I'm trying to go pretty heavy-handed here just to make sure I get that light in there. And if you wanted, you could take your micro liner or fine liner, and you could add a little bit of veining detail into some of these leaves as well. Just very, very sparingly. Again, anytime you're using a small space, just think tiny, small, little bit goes a long way. And there we have our little witch completed. We can go ahead and do our cat as well. I'm just going to use just the one color on our little cat. I'm just going to use the darker of the gray. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a little bit of the lines. And actually, I lied. I'm going to add one more color. So I'm just adding a little bit of just kind of like scribbly detail, just to make him look like he's got a little bit of cat fur. But what he doesn't have is whiskers. So I'm going to and kind of throw in little whiskers there. You could also do it with a fine line marker as well. And I might kind of define his nose a little bit more. You know he's got a big black nose. Maybe don't do that. We'll pretend like that didn't happen. All right, so I am going to just end the recording here, but we can still chat, and then we'll get ready for our next one. But there is our first garden witch. Sorry, go ahead. If anybody has any questions right now, this is the time to ask. But she was designed to go on here, and the sentiment I think I used was Hex yeah. Or, oh no, which please. I think I put on this one and two. I put the little kitty on the other side. I actually gave this bookmark to my mom when she was here to visit, but she was designed to go on a bookmark because I thought we need some other projects that aren't just cards, and I thought a bookmark would be nice. Cute to have, and our little ribbon here. So that is our project number